You can almost think of this as Star Wars The Force Awakens.
Except more entertaining, maybe. Hi, my name is Vernon, and this is Kit, and we just watched Terminator Dark Fate. Kit, what did we just watch?
We watched the fourth best movie in the sixth movie Terminator franchise.
6 and counting, because we bet you there will be a 7th.
There's some talk about James Cameron wanting Dark Fate to be the first of a trilogy.
They said that many times, especially in the last 2 to 3 films. In this movie, the time is now.
A Terminator is sent back from the future to try and kill a young Mexican girl called Danny.
And not Sarah Connor or John Connor. Plot twist.
You also have a female soldier from the future sent back to protect Danny from this new Terminator.
And surprise additional plot twist, Linda Hamilton resurfaces as Sarah Connor, and her duty is also to save Danny.
But the Terminator is not interested in Sarah Connor at all.
Not this Terminator, although Arnold Schwarzenegger's Terminator also returns, and he's interested in Sarah Connor.
Because the bad guy Terminator is coming from a different future from Arnie's Terminator, and therefore this new bad guy Terminator doesn't know anything about Sarah Connor.
In fact, Sarah Connor in the future is completely irrelevant because she's not the mother of the Resistance nor the hero of the Resistance. That's Danny. It's kind of expected though. It's technically not a plot twist. Everything we described are like plot twists in theory, but they're so expected because this film homages and repeats and rips off all the plot twists from the previous Terminator films.
In that case, you can almost think of this as Star Wars The Force Awakens.
Except more entertaining, maybe.
There are a lot of callbacks to the previous movies, which are not really explicitly highlighted for the general audience, but they are there for the hardcore fans to notice. So that's a nice touch.
Yeah, but it's kind of maybe there are too many nice touches, and then you start to think, will they do something actually original in this film? Let's have a rundown of the nice touches and flashbacks and callbacks. Number 1, Arnie dies again. He's died in every Terminator film, so...
The first 3 at least.
Yes.
The first movie was good because it showed the Terminator as being like really unkillable, except right at the end, he's crushed by a hydraulic press.
And the same thing happens to the bad Terminator right at the beginning of this film. During his first major attack, he's crushed by a hydraulic press.
But he doesn't die, and the soldier from the future knows he doesn't die because this is a different kind of Terminator. He's more like the liquid metal T-1000 from Terminator 2.
That's your second callback.
Third callback. This new liquid metal Terminator can form complex machinery like guns, whereas the T-1000 in Terminator 2 could not. He could only make his hands into swords and spears and claws. So it's different, but it's obviously a direct contradiction of the second movie to contrast the two Terminators.
But still, weapons out of hands. The same. Fourth callback. The bad Terminator in this movie is again a cop of some kind.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And uses a lot of social engineering to get its way to kill or try to kill off Danny.
The thing is, the second Terminator actually had a lot of detail in it, because I think the first person that the T-1000 impersonated was a cop. So that sort of became his default character or persona. So whenever he got into trouble or whenever there was like no real reason for him to choose any particular disguise, he became that cop. So there's a lot of thought that went into the story of Terminator 2, which you don't really see on the first viewing. But if you think it through, you say, "Oh wow, that makes sense." You know, there's a lot of like deep background in what happened or how the Terminator behaved.
Right, and I think that's what makes it the best sequel to the original Terminator.
The first person that this new liquid metal Terminator impersonates is not a policeman, but he still reconfigures himself to disguise himself as a policeman throughout the movie. But that's partly because he's playing a role. It's the policeman is not his like default configuration. It's just a useful disguise for him.
Basically, in this film, Bad Terminator chases Danny and the super soldier from the future. They get rescued after the first chase scene by Linda Hamilton / Sarah Connor, and then they get rescued by Arnold Schwarzenegger's original Terminator,
Who has aged?
really aged and grown a conscience and become really chill and develop a sense of humor along the way.
So there are a lot of possibilities that were not explored properly. There was like the hate relationship between Sarah Connor and the Schwarzenegger Terminator because he killed her son right in front of her. So there was some development there, but it wasn't really done well.
I think it was just done so that the two can have sort of sarcastic lines at each other.
Spoiler alert, okay? There's also a missed opportunity at the end when it's revealed that Danny is not the mother of the new leader of the resistance. She is the new leader of the resistance. And then Sarah Connor says, "You're John." But nothing comes from that, you know? She doesn't like take her over as a John replacement. She doesn't become suddenly like more motherly towards her. So yeah, they have all these kinds of possibilities there that are not fully developed.
I think the reason for that is the movie somewhere along the line became a collection of callbacks that were thrown into the script rather than having a script that grew out of its own and characters that grew out of their own.
Well, it could be, but I look at it as independent. I don't think the callbacks really affect the story much. They can happen pretty much independently of the story.
But for this many callbacks, I think it's more deliberate than it looks. Although it is subtle enough.
Another relationship that could have been explored could be the competition between Sarah Connor and Mackenzie, this new soldier from the future, about who is the one who should be saving Danny. There was a bit about that. They had different ideas, but it wasn't really developed or even resolved properly. It was just there and then nothing.
It was there, and then it kind of got shunted away when the group meets up with Arnold Schwarzenegger's Terminator.
And even the big hate that Sarah Connor had for Schwarzenegger, it kind of like fizzled. She says nasty things to him, and that's it. That's it. Come on.
Yeah, that's it, because all the rivalries kind of get overshadowed by the fact that there's a killer robot after them.
And
and they have a smart plan of basically trapping the killer robot by making sure that Danny is visible as a bait, and they will somehow trap it and kill it. It's basically a genre-savvy version of the Terminator film. They are genre-savvy enough to know that every bad Terminator has only one single objective, and will be lured willingly into a trap, as long as the bait is the resistance leader.
Oh, and the thing about using Danny as bait, they kind of misuse military jargon. They say that then they draw the Terminator into a kill box around her, and they use that at the end also when they do draw the Terminator in.
The correct term, I believe, is supposed to be kill zone.
Yeah, should be kill zone. A kill box is actually an area designated on a map which has been guaranteed to have zero friendlies or civilians, which means that anything that moves, you're allowed to kill it. That's the significance of the term kill box. But my biggest gripe is that they break the 180-degree rule. They cross the line. It might sound a bit technical, but what this means is that when you're looking at the scene on the screen, the characters just randomly swap positions on the screen. Sometimes character A is on the left, character B is on the right, and then sometimes it's the other way around. And
It's a kind of mistake that would make Christian Bale really scream at people.
So this is like filmmaking 101. And it happened right at the start, the first fight in the car factory. I found the fight very confusing because you didn't know who was where, because they cut quickly. And then by the time you reorientate, you say, oh, the guy suddenly went on the other side of the screen. And then they cut again, and then they flip again. And then the first big car chase sequence, the same thing happens.
The car is on the left, and then the car is on the right.
Which might not be so bad, but the quick cuts make it so that by the time you orientate yourself, they've cut to another shot, and you're just confused. And even if you're not confused, even if the shots are held longer, it's still very annoying. Well, it's not really continuity. It could be editing error. It could be a filming error. You could blame the director of photography. You could blame the director. You could blame the editor. But the end credits, they showed that they had A, B, C, and D camera crews, which probably means, well, they don't always use all four cameras for every scene, of course, but I'm guessing that they used all four cameras for the fights and the car chases, and they had no plan of what they were going to edit it to, no real storyboard. They just staged the action and then shot it from all angles with these four cameras, and then tried to stitch it together at the end, and that's why you get this weird line crossing mistake.
Because technically, for a film with this much action scenes, you do expect a lot of storyboarding.
You storyboard for a few reasons. One is so that you know what the final movie kind of looks like.
Or the DOP knows where to position the cameras, what sort of lenses and lighting to use.
Another reason is you storyboard for complex sequences, normally action sequences, so that everybody knows what to do. The stuntman, of course, the camera guys, the lighting guys, and also the special effects guys. Actually, I have seen behind-the-scenes documentaries where they do show some directors, they just stage this complicated action thing. The more skilled action directors would actually know how they wanted the action sequence to look at the end, so they only shoot what's necessary. And because of that, it actually fits in better because it's planned right from the start.
So the editor has no choice but to use the correct sequences from the correct cameras at the correct angles.
The thing that's really missing in this movie is kind of like a theme. Like we talked earlier about how these like character conflicts or developments weren't really fully fleshed out. But overall, there was no like theme about time travel or anything.
I mean, there are a few morals about time travel and fate that were in each Terminator movie.
The first Terminator movie is about Sarah Connor accepting her fate. When she first heard about it, she didn't believe it, but then she saw all these like really crazy stuff, and she became a believer. And in the end, she accepted her fate and prepared for the dark future. In Terminator 2, it's about not accepting your fate. That's why there's a famous catchphrase from the movie: "There is no fate but what you make."
The second movie had Sarah Connor and John Connor actively try to prevent Judgment Day. Even though they know it will happen, they try their best to prevent it.
So in the third Terminator movie, John Connor has grown up. 1997, there is no Judgment Day, there is no Skynet. He's still afraid that it might still happen, so he stays off the grid so that the Terminators cannot find him. And it ends with Judgment Day actually happening, because the Terminator tells him that Judgment Day is inevitable. You can postpone it, but it will still occur. And the movie ends with John Connor accepting his mantle, his role as the John Connor, the leader of the resistance.
The sixth Terminator movie doesn't say anything new about fate or destiny.
And of course, it's corrupted by the girl power message that is infecting the current crop of Hollywood movies. So, why would they send the Terminator back to this particular time to kill this young Danny when she will become the leader of the resistance? Because, well, she might just be as good, as skilled, as powerful to be able to defeat the Terminator. Whereas the first Terminator movie made sense because, yeah, okay, John Connor is this kick-ass guy, but his mother should be easy prey for the Terminator, right? So kill the mother before he's even born. So that made sense.
So this movie should be set about 20 years earlier with the bad Terminator trying to kill Danny's mom.
Or kill Danny when she's like 5 years old at least. Not when she's like, what, in her 20s now? She's already working in a car factory. And also the development of Danny herself. She's a bit of a Mary Sue because she becomes this fantastic, inspirational, brave leader.
In the last 5 minutes of the film. Whereas for 95% of the movie, she's confused, sad, and trying to run.
And they don't give a reason why she changed.
Presumably, being around badasses like Linda Hamilton, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Mackenzie helps. I don't know.
And about this girl power thing, you'll notice that there's a formula. I mean, you look at Wolverine, right? The last Wolverine movie. Wolverine sacrifices himself to save a Mexican female version of himself. So, here, Schwarzenegger sacrifices himself
Again,
to save a young female Mexican.
who's also an undocumented immigrant.
I'm surprised that the bad Terminator is not white.
Yes, don't you think it's a bit racist to have the bad Terminator as a minority character?
Well, he's not a minority in Mexico, where the movie started. Yeah, seriously, I would consider this sort of like the Force Awakens version of Terminator. They kind of rehash the first and second Terminator movies without really adding much, except for some girl power stuff. With a lot of callbacks, a lot of nostalgia for the fans.
I think that's a problem with a lot of franchise sequels these days. They tend to be far less interested in being original and telling a good story and more interested in giving fans or so-called fans or who they think should be fans a lot of callbacks and references to the previous movies. But Kit is right. I think people who like The Force Awakens will probably like this movie. If anything, what this new modern Hollywood style of sequels is really telling us is, everything is fated to repeat itself over and over again with less and less meaning and coherence each time you repeat it.
Wow, that's really meta. Yeah.
And with that, we're signing off for this week.
Bye.